Hello, everyone. How are you? I am so excited to be here with you for another story of hope. We get to do these in my world, fortunately, quite regularly, and every story I think is such a hopeful one. And I'm here with Rebecca. Thank you so much for I'm always so honored that you guys want to come live and share your stories with, I feel like, the world. Did you watch any of the stories of hope when you were on your journey, Rebecca?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
I think I don't know. I might have watched them all.
that's amazing.
It was
So,
a pick me up. It was a pick me up for me during the
yeah.
process. I just picked one of those and put it on while I was folding laundry or whatever and feel a little better.
And so, I mean, you and I were talking before we hit record. Your your stories, I mean, you had an easy time getting pregnant and having children, I would say in your 30s, right? And probably 20s, right? Rebecca has you just had your 10th child, which is amazing. You're amazing. You're amazing. And but you're we just had anyway. I'll let you tell the story a little bit. Tell kind of the history, and then lead up to like why. So you coached with Heather, one of our coaches here at Team Amy, and yeah, kind of share a little bit about your story.
Sure. We did have a really easy time with fertility in our younger years. We actually had our first loss in 2017. And we had already had 7 children. So we really, not to say that it was to be expected, but in reality, it happens. It
Yeah, the
happens. And it
statistics
happened.
were not on your side at that
Right.
point, right?
Exactly. Exactly. We had already kind of defied them a little bit. So that was a 12-week miscarriage. I think the baby probably stopped growing around 6 weeks. Super hard. The first one, like super hard. That was a really hard one. Very easy though, physically. And we went on, I didn't even have a cycle. I caught that first egg and we had a healthy baby. And then we repeated that whole thing again in 2019. Same situation, almost exact timeline on the loss and everything. And then had another healthy baby. After
You
that,
were
that baby, she was,
two. Yeah, that's my internet. I hear you. You're frozen though. That's
it's okay.
yeah. Okay, you can keep talking. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay. Are
the
we,
same thing happened. So you had baby number seven, or sorry, eight,
it was
and
actually, that was 8, right?
then going on to baby number nine, you were 42 when you gave
Another,
birth, but in between you
right,
had
right.
another loss, right?
Exactly, right, exactly. And that baby was born in 2020, um, the ninth. And I usually get my cycle back around when the baby's a year, and within 1 to 3 cycles, just letting things happen. It usually happens again. And it I thought so. My cycle came back a little early, and I kind of naively thought, "Oh, this is just giving me more time," because I knew 44 was coming. I was 43 at the time. 44 was coming. I felt good about 43. So, but immediately my cycles were just, I could tell something was like a little different than before. I was having like hot flashes, heart palpitations, a super heavy cycle, and I also had gone off my thyroid medication. I don't like taking medication, but I was on it during the pregnancy. I had gone off. I then went back on. Um, it was just a little, things were just rocky. I didn't feel like I was really healthy hormonally anyway at that point. So I let it go and just kept going until about November of that year. So November of 2021 now. And that's when I found your stuff, read all your books, dove into all this kind of stuff. And I've been a fan of acupuncture for years on and off. I went back in November, and we ended up pregnant in that December, and it was a super early loss. Days later, that one was not going to be, and that was the first for me to have that kind of loss. And so didn't really think too much of it because I knew it was kind of part of the process for me at this point. And then I think that's about when I scheduled with Heather, and we had also been planning for phase 2 of the EQ diet at that point
Oh, got
too,
it. All right. Okay.
getting ready to waiting for the holidays to start that. And then in just and I in let's see, so that was like December-ish that I had that early loss, and then in January I met with Heather. I had COVID and I was ovulating all at the same time.
Yeah, I was
And
just reading through
then
your notes, right? You were
and then I that one was the same thing. We lost that one too, really early, super
pregnant
early.
and an early loss, right? Okay.
Yeah. And so by then, at this point now, I have Heather, and we had met and we had kind of created a plan, put a plan in place. And it was, some of it was a little trial and error, what I felt was like working for us, what might not have been working as well. And again, the thyroid medication, I had gone off of it again.
Yeah,
Like
and I remember us saying we thought you should go back on it, right?
exactly. And so at first I was doing the desiccated. I don't think that was the right
Doing
one for
armor,
me.
I remember, right?
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think that was the right, like, for me. So we eventually there was a few on and offs, but I eventually well, I was off for a while, I will say. And I was off, I think, through that June of that year. So now we're in 2022, of June of 2022. We were pregnant again and again, of super early loss. And I believe I was off that thyroid stuff at this point.
Yeah,
I didn't really, this point in the process is kind of where we kind of shifted, and we for me mainly, I just started to like enjoy and really focus on enjoying everything that we had in life, because so many things to live for and to be there for. And it was it was okay, and I was happy for that point, because I always knew the end of my childbearing career was going to be hard. And so I was happy that I was coming to that point where, like, this is good, this is okay. We're all here and healthy, and to just enjoy life with our children. And so we fought we I followed that up in November by really saying, so November of 2022, of saying that, like, I didn't even want to try anymore. Like, I didn't want to know, like, I had spent so many years of my life knowing my cycle. We had used UVA for a while. We had used another device tracking everything, BBT. I was just like, I think I just want to be done with this and not be worrying about a positive test or a negative test, and just living. And so that's really how we focused on November and December. And I, somehow we didn't do a good job and ended up pregnant again in December. And yeah, that was a surprise. That was really a surprise. And I kind of knew from the beginning, from my other later losses, that this wasn't probably wasn't a viable pregnancy. I avoided getting labs drawn and
right.
doing all that stuff. I think I knew what was inevitably coming. I did a few labs, and I was checking my thyroid, actually, ironically, um, because I knew that that was something I needed to do.
Right.
So that loss was a very hard, physically. I ended up in the hospital. I hadn't had this process before. I narrowly escaped some things that I wanted to, like a blood transfusion and surgery. And I was blessed with, I don't like the hospital at all. I do not like medical anything. And I was very blessed that they really were working with me, and we were doing the best we could to, safely handle the situation.
Okay.
Um, and
So
so after,
yeah,
yeah, that was a scary one, because I have other children and I'm like,
yeah,
I need to be here for these other
yeah,
children, and I am, leaving them to go to the hospital, and I do not even know what I'm jumping into. But thankfully it all really did, work out the best that it could have, given the situation. And then I'm kind of scared, at this
yeah,
point I'm like, I don't think I want to do pregnancy again.
yeah.
I think I'm done, and I'm okay with that, but I'm not really sure how, given some of our beliefs and our thoughts, I'm avoiding this for the rest of my potential fertile
Right.
years. We don't
Yeah.
know what they are. It's kind of like that, like, what am I doing now? What are we doing? And I kind of sat on it for like 6 weeks, really. I was healing. I was just like, something's gonna, I'm gonna feel something. I'm gonna feel like what my path should be here. And
Yeah,
so
you're a
eventually,
spiritual religious person, right? It's like
yeah,
you,
we
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And I think that helped a lot in the process here because I had to let it go. And I had to try to figure out what felt good to us with moving forward from that loss and for this stage of life, really. And so it did hit me eventually, and I was willing to let. We were both willing. He was more willing for me all the time, for me than me all the time, but I'm also the one that was physically like going through that whole process. So,
sure. And that's now
he
four
was.
losses, right?
Yeah,
After,
that's 4 after the birth at 42.
yeah,
So, and now this one's a whole nother that one was a whole nother ball game to me. Like, that was just different. So I decided that I was willing to let what was going to happen in the future. And I did put up, the one thing I did do was with my missed miscarriages, I I let my body just wait it out. And I
yeah,
also had no idea when it had really happened, even though I felt like I knew symptomatically it was happening. I didn't know when baby had passed. So I put this plan in place where I was going to monitor HCG. I was going to have the early ultrasounds. I was going to really know what was happening, because if it happened again, I was going to try to prevent that long drawn out,
yeah, process.
process, and maybe avoid some of what I experienced before. However, that might have looked. I don't know at the time what it would have looked like, maybe medication, whatever I felt would have helped us out. So when that, I kind of felt better about the whole, just letting things happen. And I became really serious about our health plan again. I had kind of fallen off, like, with the loss, and even with all those losses, like, I had kind of like fallen off a little bit. And so I just for whatever, I think it was more for my health at this
Yeah,
point, healing too. And but my husband did the same. We were both on it together, doing the supplements, doing our version of the diet. We kind of morphed it into ours, what the foods we liked best, and with keeping in the really good ones,
yeah.
the
And
really
you
good.
were kind of, even when you came to us, you didn't do a lot of like gluten or,
I haven't had gluten in 12 years or so. Yes, and we were very much, as much organic as possible, grass-fed meat. This had all in the works
that's all
already,
your
like
life, yeah, or
a
whatever.
years
That's,
ago,
yeah,
right? And it was a little, like, my husband, not as much, so that was a little bit harder for him, or more work for him, I should say. He was successful, but it was a little more work for him. So I also, one thing that I really did was I was really serious about avoiding the added sugar, like, completely avoiding it. I completely avoid. I don't know how I really did it. I need to get back on it. I fell off that again, but like, your body really changes when you do that out at about like 45 to 60 days. It's amazing.
right.
And I had never gone that long before, with really literally zero added sugars. So that was, in that time period, was the time that we conceived again. Towards the Yeah, I mean, I continued through the first trimester as much as I could to do that. It's always
You
hard.
were 45 and a half at this point.
Yeah, at that point I was 45 and a half. It was beginning of June when we discovered that we were pregnant again. And I did indeed, as hard as it was for me, do that plan that I had. I don't like waiting for lab results. The early ultrasounds, not my thing. It's terrifying once you've had some of those experiences. But I just forced myself to do it. And then I, found a provider for us. We've had out of hospital births in the past, birth centers, home births here. And I decided that wasn't what we were going to do this time. And, we found a hospital group of midwives, and um, everything, it went, it was anxiety. Of course, it was full of anxiety, but it all went, well. He was born at 37 and a half weeks about due to excess fluid, but he was perfectly fine. And it was just, it could have just been how many kids I've had. Honestly, we don't really know why that developed quickly at
Right.
the end. No, that was the only little hiccup there.
And how about your thyroid? Because I can't remember. Did you?
I stayed on the medication. I'm
Good.
still on it.
Okay.
I stayed on the medication through the entire pregnancy. I didn't need to make changes. My thyroid's kind of, it's one of those deals where I'm sure you've seen this many times. So my medical doctor, who's also a naturopath, is the one who's like, yeah, it likes to hover around 4. I'd like it lower, right? Whereas the general
Yeah,
community
they're
might say,
catering to
hey,
what
if
you're.
more, you're okay. So it didn't have to be altered. It did what it typically would do during pregnancy, where it kind of goes down. And in the third trimester, you see a slight increase, but it always stayed in what was considered a healthy pregnancy
Did you
range.
take a baby aspirin in this pregnancy?
I did.
Yeah.
I started doing that, post ovulation. Um, that might have been pretty consistent for me, kind of as a just in case. I did not do it. Well, I played with it during the loss. Before that, I think because I knew what was
Yeah.
coming, and I didn't want the aspirin. I didn't want to be bleeding and aspirin, all that kind of stuff. So, but in this pregnancy, I definitely took it. I took it all the way until probably 36 weeks, and then, kind of expecting to go more towards 40,
Yeah.
but it was still fine. It was all fine. But yes, that was a big one for me. Um, and then some of the supplements that were recommended, I feel like I the food supplements, I think, were really huge for us to take: the beef liver and the cod liver oil and the spirulina and the broccoli sprouts, and like those are all things, like, especially me, like I've kept, just as a part of a healthy regimen. And then, I mean, some of the other things that she had advised, some of them worked well for me, I felt, and some of them we agreed, like, okay, I remember I was taking the
Yeah. That's
Avastin
what I
for a
remember
while.
is Obasitol.
And I don't, I don't think it was the supplement for me for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So after like 4, 6 months or whatever, I was just like, I'm going to drop that one out, and, and see what happens to my cycle,
Yeah.
and we kind of did that with a couple of them, but for the most part, it was all simple stuff. I feel like here,
Yeah.
vitamins, CoQ10, um, the baby aspirin. I did do castor oil packs for a long while in there, and I did use the Progestavale
That's right. They
um,
put you on the progesterone.
as it might have been more precautionary than anything else, but it felt like it wasn't going to hurt, and so I
You
did
remember
that.
your progesterone in the early parts of this pregnancy? Was it low or was it
No, it was higher than I've ever seen it.
right?
So super
Great
interesting.
sign. Yeah.
I was using the progesterone, but even when I had tracked other cycles where we didn't conceive, even at that like 7 day,
Yeah.
post ovulation, it wasn't nearly as high as it was in the beginning of our successful pregnancy. And I don't know, it could have been like just we were really getting in the groove of a couple months of a really healthy lifestyle. Um,
Yeah.
you
We
know,
say, I mean, it's like when the progesterone is that healthy, it's, obviously it's a good sign for a pregnancy, especially, but even if it's a super high progesterone in a month you didn't conceive, you can extrapolate that it was a pretty healthy follicle, which had a pretty healthy egg. And that's how we would, kind of put it together. So yeah, I think this little one was just it was a super healthy egg. That's how I would look at them, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
And so so then you gave birth in your 46th year, right? You were 46 and change.
Yeah, 10 days. Yeah, 10 days after my 46th birthday. And I will say it didn't phase anybody really that I was working with, which was nice. It wasn't, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, they put those protocols in place and but they did kind of give me choice. And I didn't, I kind of was like, let's, I didn't fight them on a lot of that stuff. I got out of some of it because he was early, but you know, I was just kind of like, at that point in the pregnancy, you're just kind of like, you want your healthy baby in your arms, and let's
Yeah.
just get to that point.
And
You
you
know,
feel a sense of completion, or how would you, I mean, you're only 11 weeks postpartum right now, but
yeah, yeah. But they asked me that there too, ironically, and I'm like, I don't know. My first answer is I don't want to have another loss.
yeah,
I can't guarantee that, and I, I will definitely continue doing these things and making a lot of those recipes that we really, the whole family enjoyed a lot of them, and keeping them in our rotation, and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like this was like a super blessing, and that I can't, that's good. It was
yeah.
good.
And then for you to just continue. So that was, I think, the big shift after the last loss was I'm gonna just focus on me and being healthy and not so much on doing this for baby, right? That was kind of the big shift for
Yeah, I think the mentality is, so even after the third early loss, I think it kind of shifted a little bit to like, if it happens again, I really want to feel like I did everything that I could do,
totally.
without going into like just naturally, like with the supplements and with the diet, and that my husband did the same, and we were, working together to do that. And that way, I think if it had happened again and we had had another loss, like, I mean, I don't know what to say, but I wasn't going to go into like, you know, I wasn't going to do anything else.
Totally.
I was content I didn't even want to do testing to potentially see what could have been, because we didn't, we were, we had children. It wasn't we were good. We were good. It's just putting that in place for our health, but also in case we had another pregnancy, that we were giving but baby, the best shot at surviving. So that was really where it was. And after the last one, yeah, after the period of like, I don't even know what, it just kind of came that was okay. I felt at peace with letting go and letting it happen, but being more, coming out of my fear a little bit of all the procedures,
Yeah.
and like being on top of what was happening instead of just waiting.
Yeah. So a little more in
I
control.
think we have,
Or
yeah.
yeah, I know you're frozen, but I can hear you. It's okay. Um, you'll come back. It'll
Yep, we're
um
back.
there you are. Hi.
Yeah,
Um,
there I am.
so I guess too of like, I don't know, what would you speak to with the women who are watching? I mean, I feel like in your case, the like words that are coming to me are like tenacity and faith, and also just like surrender. I think there was some surrender in there for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, I found that as you age, like, I think it might just take a little longer. And we're kind of programmed to like think that this should happen quickly. And I was super blessed that it did always happen quickly, but in reality, I think some people get to that like, 6 month mark, and they're already like really, really antsy, like this isn't going to happen. And and I admit to being the same way. I had my timelines. I had like 43 sounded great, get pregnant by the time I'm 44, have a baby when I'm 44. That all sounds like, that sounds reasonable and doable, and it didn't happen that way. And it just took more time than I would have ever thought it would have taken.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and especially considering your history, like you had your own
right, right. But
yourself.
sometimes I think, as hard as it is, just keep doing the work and being patient and know you're doing the work. And it does feel good to try different things. I mean, I did. I mean, we tried different devices for monitoring hormones, or, tried more meditation, calming time, finding other outlet, other things to do, or to focus on instead of your cycle. And, um, you know, I think that all helps too, but
Yeah,
patience and just doing the work and letting your body adjust to the changes that you're making. If you're making, some people are making huge changes, from with their diet and stuff like that. And it takes time.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, having him here now, I'm sure you had said like before we started recording of like this pregnancy, you felt like you just couldn't wait to get him here, right, and get to the other side.
Yeah, I wanted to enjoy it. I do typically enjoy pregnancy. There's nothing really like feeling the baby all moving
Yeah,
all inside you and watching that and all that kind of stuff. And I did want to enjoy it, and I do think I did. I think I was able to um, be in the moment a lot of the time. But yeah, you definitely always have that anxiety of you know what's to come in the pregnancy, and just want to have it be over,
yeah,
because you've
have it
worked
in your
so
arms. Yeah,
hard. Yeah.
yeah, like you did it. I love that. And continuing on your liver pills, I hope in the postpartum period, right? And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
and your
Yeah,
bone.
a lot of the things just became part of our lifestyle. Um, and because again, we were really focused on our health to give, a potential baby the best situation to grow in.
I love it. Yeah. So I don't know, any final words of hope to those watching now that you're on the other side?
No, I think I just, I do think focusing on like what you say, vitamin J, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on the joy that's in your life, and know that the changes that you're making, that you might be making with diet or supplements or acupuncture or changing your beauty products or whatever you're doing, are good no matter what your outcome is. They're positive changes for you and for your body and for your life. And there's people like you, Amy, that are here to, support and help. And I loved my meeting with Heather. It was nice and long, and you know it was about me, like we were focused on me. And so getting involved in different things like that can certainly help to get, put your mind in a positive place, which is certainly where it needs to be during, this kind of journey.
Yeah. It's a long, hard journey, and I think support is so valuable. And also that like refocus, right? And that's a big part of what I always talk about of like how are you nourishing you, right? That's so much the core of I think the work we
Right. And that looks different for everybody. I mean, I
do.
can't, I can't speak to certain things because I did successfully have children. And so, I always, have a pull of the heart for the people who are, struggling to conceive their first, or, their second, or whatever.
Loss, and like I also think like it's all relative, I suppose, but it's loss, and desire, and I guess the shifts you made to have this happen. You know what I mean? You know, transformation, maybe that's a good way to
Right.
put it, of like understanding like, oh, okay, well, why was it working so well? And then all of a sudden it's not. What do I need to do to shift into that?
Right. And I
And
think that if I hadn't been, if my story hadn't been this one, there would have always been children in my life in some way.
yeah,
There always will be,
yeah,
I mean, it's just that I'm drawn to that. And so, my kids are going to grow up, but I'll find, hopefully they'll be grandchildren, but I'll find a way if that, to have
totally.
children be a part of our life.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice message too of um yeah, there's so many ways to bring that energy into your life. Yeah.
That's true.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I always love all these meetings. They're the best. And we're sending you so much love, and you get to go and take care of your newborn. Hopefully, you have some support around
We
there with
do.
the other kiddos.
Lots of support. Yes.
Good, good, good. And yeah, thank you so much for coming and sharing. I know how important these stories are to
You're welcome.
all the listeners, and we really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. See, my mouse isn't working. There we go. Stop